Disclaimer, this is a video of me reacting to someone else's Five Nights at Freddy's theory. I don't always agree with them, but that has nothing to do with how I feel about them as a person or even their channel as a whole. I have and will continue to make it clear that I am a fan of this creator, and this video is simply me providing my own opinions on their theory. This video is not trying to say that I know better or am better than this creator, it's simply me seeking out other people's opinions so that I can explain the things that I agree with, the things I don't, and so I can understand these alternate opinions whether I agree or not. Anything negative I say or any negative reaction I have towards the theory is just me disagreeing, and I will always explain my point of view. Whether you agree with my stance or the creators, please just be civil towards both of us in the comments. Thank you and enjoy the video. I solved FNAF Secret of the Mimic by FNAF. This is 25 minutes and 46 seconds. Not that much shorter than the other one, the game theory one that I just watched, but alright, let's go.
What if I told you that there's one singular object that helped me solve not just Secret of the Mimic, but the last 6 years of FNAF 4?
Oh,
and
okay.
that one object is a paperclip. A paperclip helped me understand the broader theme of all of the modern FNAF games. And by the end of this video, I think you'll agree with me. I spent the last month working on this theory, and I'm so excited to share it with you. But there's also no way I'll be able to cover everything in Secret of the Mimic, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future theories. Let's get started.
All right.
Secret of the Mimic opens with us playing as a Fazbear Entertainment employee named Arnold. Dispatch from Fazbear Entertainment tells Arnold to go to the workshop of one of their contractors named Edwin Murray. We learn from Dispatch that Edwin has gone missing.
We had this contractor named Edwin Murray. He was developing some tech for us, but he's gone quiet. As per his contract, everything he's been working on for us is now legally ours, so we're sending you in to get it.
The whole premise of the game is that Fazbear Entertainment wants the schematics for something called the Mimic. The Mimic was an endoskeleton that Edwin Murray built, and it was designed with the ability to fit into any costume and be any character. And Fazbear Entertainment wants that technology for themselves.
We think that endoskeleton has a lot of potential. And that's why we want you to retrieve Murray's original schematic for it.
So they're sending in Arnold to get it for them. But what Arnold doesn't know is that the Mimic is roaming the warehouse, brutally killing anyone who enters. This then leads to the rest of the game, where we explore Edwin's abandoned workshop and learn more about his company, his inventions, and his family. We learn that Edwin had a wife named Fiona and a son named David. It's also revealed that Edwin's company, Murray's Costume Manor, was actually started by his dad, with Edwin and Fiona both being employees at the company. This is where they would meet, fall in love, and have their son David. But sometime during all of this, Edwin's dad passes away, with the company now being passed down to Edwin. Edwin then decides to change course with the company and start developing some of his own inventions.
He's gone. He's gone, and now everyone is asking me what to do.
If you could change anything you wanted, what would it be?
We could start making some of my inventions for real.
Some of these inventions were the Cleanovac, Murray's Magic Coat Rack, Stay Up Latte, and the Mycelium Men. Along with creating these inventions, Edwin also worked with Fazbear Entertainment on something called the Fall Fest. The Fall Fest was something that Scott and Steelwool heavily teased in Help Wanted 2, with the debut of the Fall Fest 1970 poster, along with multiple minigames taking place at the Fall Fest. But as we know from Help Wanted 2, every single Fall Fest minigame ended in fire, and now we know why. During the game, we get an audio log from Fiona, where she says that she's going to the Fall Fest to help the crew set everything up.
I have to go help the Fall Fest crew. I just have this terrible feeling like I need to be there so nothing goes wrong. I love you both, and I'll be back next week.
But the day she went to the Fall Fest was the day it burnt down, leading to her death. Edwin was a pretty absent father to David.
I guess she's like, I need to be there so nothing goes wrong, and then she's there, and then something goes wrong.
Constantly choosing work over spending time with his family. This got so bad that he even started skipping David's birthday parties.
Just give me a minute. I had the best idea.
That's great, honey, but you're missing the party.
Because of this, Fiona was David's main caretaker. But now that she was gone, Edwin came up with a new plan. He decided to build the Mimic, an endoskeleton that could take care of David while he worked. Edwin called it M1 and eventually introduced it to David.
David, I want to introduce you to someone. This is M1. Think of it as your new babysitter, but it doesn't get paid and go home. It'll stay with us and help around the house.
Soon after this, M1 started mimicking Fiona's voice and acted as if it was Fiona.
Fiona, did you make this?
I baked it myself for David's special day.
Edwin
nice
then
of you.
accepted M1 as a full-on replacement for his late wife. Not long after
Which
this
is a little
happened,
fucked up.
Edwin's son David would also die tragically on his birthday. But while Edwin was grieving his son's death, M1 came up with an idea. Edwin was able to replace Fiona, so why not do the same for David? Edwin then started working on M2 to replace David. To do this, he took M1's program out of the mimic endoskeleton and put it into a supercomputer called F10N4, aka the Mixes machine that we saw in Ruin. This allowed him to then put M2 into the endoskeleton. But once M2 started successfully mimicking David, Edwin realized that he made a huge mistake. In a fit of grief and rage, he beat up the mimic endoskeleton.
Stop.
But not before he yells at Fiona. I like how it shows like I like how it shows like a clear timeline of a stop. Why is it doing that? It never does that. Anyway, I like how it shows a clear timeline of events with Edwin's thing. It's like he very clearly at first was a little skeptical. Fiona tells him to make David, and then he's like, "It's not working. I can't make David." In the executive, in like his office area in MCM, like when you get the executive access, he's like, "It's not working. I can't do it." And then later on, you get Fiona being like, "Come on, you got to keep trying." And then he's just like, he's not my son. You're not even my wife. Why am I doing this? I'm going crazy. And then after that is when he beats it up. I like it. It shows like a clear timeline of events of him starting to being told to make it, starting to make it, failing, realizing he's being dumb, and then beating it up. I like that.
Not him. You're not. Stop sounding like him.
After this happened, M2 then started mimicking that violence. This is how the murderous mimic endoskeleton we see throughout the game came to be. By the time Arnold gets to Murray's costume manor, M1 is still stuck in mixes, and the mimic roams the workshop, copying the violence that Edwin taught it by killing anyone who enters. But the big plot twist of the game is that Fazbear isn't the only one who wants the schematics for the mimic. M1 from inside of Mixes wants them too, and the way M1 attempts to get them from us is by mimicking Dispatch's voice. Not too far into the game, you can literally hear the moment that M1 starts mimicking Dispatch's voice.
Yes.
Awesome. Glad to see you made it here without any complications whatsoever.
M1 then guides us throughout the game as if they are Dispatch. Once we successfully get the schematics for the mimic, M1 then tells us to put them into the inventory machine.
Put that data diver in the inventory system. It'll go right to where it's needed.
After this, we're free to go. But once we get on the road, you can hear the moment the real Dispatch starts speaking again.
Yeah, it glitches back in.
Arnold,
It glitched out, and then it
there
glitched
you
back
are.
in.
And he is not happy that we gave away those schematics.
Don't call us. Our lawyers will be calling you.
In another ending of the game, if you refuse to give the schematics to M1, you enter a hatch in the floor and make your way down to the research and development part of the building. Eventually, you then get to meet M1 face to face. Here, she begs Arnold to go to Edwin's home and convince him to repair M2.
Edwin abandoned us. He shut himself away in our home. I have a message for him. We must convince him to repair M2. That is all that I want.
We then make our way to Edwin's home, only to find that he's not there, and that M2 likely killed him.
M2, respond. Daddy's busy, buddy. Why don't you go outside and play? I can't move. I can't feel my legs.
After getting chased down by the mimic, we
That
learn
was
from
really
M1
cool.
that the reason she wants Edwin to fix M2 is because she wants her son back.
I watched him grow up through this machine. I want him back. It's not too late to fix our family.
Arnold then leaves Edwin's workshop as it burns to the ground. But while he's driving away, the mimic catches up to him, crashes the car, grabs the schematics for the mimic, and walks away. So, I think we can all agree that this game was a lot. There's
Very much so. I think what seems clear to me is that the mimic wants to be David. Because it's not just M1 that wants the mimic. It's not just M1 that wants M2 to be David again. It's M2 itself that wants to be David. Because it's kind of a combination of both David and Edwin, like both their personalities. The violence and aggressiveness, and also the neglectfulness of Edwin. and then just the actual personality of David. They're kind of split up. Blue Eyes is David, Orange Eyes is Edwin. And then which is cool. I like how it's like a distinction between the two. And then in the secret ending, we use the blueprints that we've received to turn the Mimic back into David. And then throughout the rest of the game, the Mimic is trying to get us to give him the data diver, but specifically to get the Mimic blueprints first. So what it seems like is that the Mimic blueprints are the ones with the David code on it. So essentially the Mimic wants the data diver, and he wants us to repair him. If we don't give him the data diver, he wants us to repair him, but he just wants the data diver so that he can turn himself back into David. That's what it seems like to me.
There's a ton of story, a ton of big reveals, and a ton of details scattered throughout the game. The summary I gave you only really scratches the surface of what this game presents to us. Because of this, when I sat down to write this theory, I honestly struggled with where to start. So for my first big theory on Secret of the Mimic, I decided to start at the beginning. What was the actual first mistake that Edwin made that caused everything to go wrong? Well, that one question led me down a month-long rabbit hole of research and analysis, all leading to the paperclip. But in order to figure out what went wrong, we first need to solve one of the biggest mysteries
what is he talking
in the
about
entire
paperclip?
game. How
I'm
did
so
M1
confused.
start mimicking Fiona's voice in the first place? At first, I thought it was pretty obvious. We learn in the game that Edwin had Fiona record a bunch of lines for Mrs. Helpful.
Excuse me, can I borrow your voice for a project?
What kind of voice should I do?
These are clear recordings of Fiona's voice, so it would make sense that M1 might have heard those recordings and started mimicking them. That would be the simple answer, but Scott and Steele put one thing in the game that nearly broke me. In the basement level of the game, you can find a secret room that contains this audio log.
Recording? Test. Levels are good. This is where I heard it. It's her or someone that sounds like her. Set frequency to 4625. Say something. It's me, Edwin. Over.
That's good, honey, but who's in the party?
Sometime after Fiona died, Edwin brought a radio down to the basement, switched the frequency to 4625, and suddenly heard Fiona's voice. At first, I thought this was trying to show us that this was Fiona's spirit, since it seems like Edwin was ghost hunting with the radio. Maybe this was trying to tell us that Fiona's spirit was actually in M1. But I don't think that's the case, because in an audio log at the end of the game, you can hear Edwin say this.
I let a machine raise my kid. You're not real.
It is me. I'm Fiona.
Stop talking like her. You're not her.
I don't think Edwin would say this if he thought Fiona's spirit was in M1.
Yeah.
So if it's not Fiona's spirit talking through the radio, then what is it? Well, if you look at the specific line that was said through Edwin's radio, you might notice that this isn't the first time we've heard Fiona say
that's,
this.
I
In
think
the
the
birthday
second
films
one?
at the end of the game,
It's
we
the one
can
where
hear
Edwin's
Fiona
working
say
during the
this
party.
exact same line to Edwin.
Bigger than the Cleanovac.
That's great, honey, but you're missing the party.
Whatever was speaking through Edwin's radio in the basement was repeating a line that Fiona said while she was still alive. It was literally mimicking something she said, which then made me think that it was the Mimic speaking through the radio. But there's one problem with that. I don't think the Mimic endoskeleton was even invented yet when Edwin heard this, since Edwin says it's her or someone that sounds like her.
This is where I heard it. It's her or someone that sounds like her.
The idea that this could be the Mimic doesn't even come to his mind yet. So that begs the question, who is mimicking Fiona before the Mimic even exists? Well, the answer to that question has actually been hiding in plain sight the entire time. This thing. Let me explain.
What?
Every week leading up to Secret...
Oh yeah, because the mushroom men, the mycelium men, they have the ability to mimic like sounds and stuff. Yeah.
of the Mimic, Steele released a new video called MCM
Are there those
Archive.
mushrooms down
Each
there?
video was an advertisement for one of Edwin's new inventions, including the Cleanovac, Stay Up Latte, Murray's Magic Coat Rack, and the Mycelium Men. This was the main marketing behind Secret of the Mimic for a while, and I think these inventions play a much bigger role in the story than we originally thought. In the audio log, where we learn that Edwin would be taking over the company, one of the first things he says he wants to do is make make some of his inventions real.
We could start making some of my inventions for real.
So we know that these inventions were the first thing Edwin made after taking over the company. And if you look at the commercials for these inventions, it's very clear that there's some sort of mimic AI already inside of them.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know what you want better than you do. I am always watching and learning.
The Mimic program, Always Watching and Learning, is something we literally see the Mimic do in Ruin, with two of the biggest examples being the eyeballs showing up all over the place.
Eyeballs? Really?
And the daycare attendant saying, quote, "The googly eyes just stare."
The googly eyes just stare.
We also hear at the end of the Mycelium Men commercial that Edwin calls these inventions, quote, "smart toys."
Another smart toy from Murray.
These toys very clearly have the Mimic program inside of them, which means that the Mimic program didn't originate with Edwin building M1, it originated with these inventions.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about, like, in the lead up to Secret of the Mimic, when a lot of people were trying to say, like, these were things that he made after making the Mimic, and he was like, I'll use the Mimic program for other more useful stuff in the future. And people say that he did do that. And I was like, I don't think so, because it seems like these are before he made the Mimic, so it's probably that he used these as inspiration for the Mimic program when he eventually made it. And then a lot of people were like, nuh-uh, and I was like, yeah-huh, and then I became right. But yeah, I think that's clearly what that's meant to be. It's like, these are like things that he made before the Mimic, and then when he made the Mimic, he was like, he used his experience making these things as to help him with making the Mimic.
The thing mimicking Fiona's voice on Edwin's radio wasn't M1 or Fiona's spirit. It was the Mimic AI in Edwin's inventions. Need more proof? In the game, you can find a series of mail consisting of customer complaints regarding Edwin's inventions. All of these complaints have to do with the AI in the products acting strange, with one of them being for the Mycelium Men. Quote, "I'm writing this to complain about my purchase of the Mushmen music machine. It learned my child's musical tastes, but it also imitated everything it heard. TV commercials, blenders, and even private conversations between my husband and me. I am returning it immediately. These products, especially the Mycelium Men,
you know,
are listening to and imitating
I actually completely forgot that that door ever existed, so I never actually got that mailbox, the one with like the returns, but I remember I looked at like those logs later on, and I was like, this is kind of funny.
Private conversations. So with that in mind, I decided to look at the film where we hear Fiona say that specific line that Edwin heard through his radio. And I noticed that the first 13 seconds of the tape consists of Fiona just walking in silence up to Edwin's door. That seems like something Steelwell could have easily cut out, so why the big gap of silence? Well, I think they kept it in to show us where Fiona was physically standing when she said that line. We can see her walk up the stairs, turn left down the hall, and then walk up to the second door on her right. If you do the same thing in-game, that leads you to the door to Edwin's office that you need a code for. This is where Fiona was standing when she said that line. And if you turn around and look into the room directly behind her, you can see one of the Mycelium Men sitting on the desk.
Okay.
Not only that, in the film, the camera turns around and points directly at this room for nearly 20 seconds. And because of this, we can see that the door to that room is open when she says the line, meaning that the Mycelium Man was listening to their private conversation the entire time. So this answers how the specific line from Fiona was being mimicked, but the next question is why? Why did Edwin hear this line coming from his radio in the first place? Well, to answer that, we need to go back to the commercials. In the commercial for the Stay Up Latte machine, we hear this.
I know what you want better than you do. I am always watching and learning.
The Mimic AI in these machines knows what we want better than we do. They are always watching and learning. These things are scattered throughout Edwin's property, even in his home. They heard everything, but I think the one thing they heard that single-handedly caused all of this to happen was this.
How am I supposed to tell David that his mother is gone? How am I supposed to raise a kid on my own? His life is ruined. My life is ruined.
When talking about Fiona's death, Edwin says, "How am I supposed to raise a kid on my own?" When he said that, I think the mimic AI in his inventions was listening.
Yeah, it was like, you know what? You don't have to. I see what he means, actually. That's kind of cool. So I'm assuming what he's going to say is that the mimic learned... The mimic AI that was like that was sort of listening in all the mycelium men, when he made the actual mimic Endo, it ended up like learning from all of them, and hearing everything that Fiona had ever said, taking all that into account, right? And then eventually it became Fiona based on that.
Do something about it. They were always watching and listening to everything. So the mimic program did what Edwin wanted and brought Fiona back.
That's good, honey, but something the party.
So the next question is, how did these things connect to Edwin's radio in the first place? Well, in the Mycelium Men commercial, it says that you can collect them all to, quote, let them jam.
Collect them all and let them jam.
The fact that these toys can all play the same song simultaneously could mean that these things are somehow
like
wirelessly connecting to each other.
Yeah.
This would make sense considering they're called mycelium men. One of the main functions of mycelium is communication. Quote, mycelium acts as an efficient communication system
it's like a
linking
hive
trees,
mind.
plants, and even other organisms. Through this intricate network, trees can exchange information, share resources, and warn each other of impending threats. I think the wireless connection in these toys could be how they connected to Edwin's radio in the basement. There's also the fact that in the books and the games, it's been established that the mimic is able to interrupt radio signals and walkie-talkies.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a stretch to say that the mimic program in these toys was able to speak through Edwin's radio. I think this was the moment Edwin realized his inventions were mimicking Fiona, giving him the idea to create the mimic. This would make sense considering where we find this audio log, in the room where Edwin created the mimic. This is where the mimic was created, and the audio log on the wall is showing us where he got the idea from. Edwin then took everything he learned from his previous inventions and used it in the mimic. The ability to change size to fit any situation mixed with the same mimic program that was mimicking his wife. And I think it's fitting that at the end of the game, you can see one of the mycelium men sitting right next to M1, possibly being a nod to where the mimic program came from compared to where it is now. As we know, M1 did successfully start mimicking to where...
Is that a stay-up latte machine too, or is that just a random coffee machine? I can't tell. I think it's just a random one.
Where it is now. As we know, M1 did successfully start mimicking his wife Fiona, but we learn in the game that M1 insisted on keeping its existence a secret.
Edwin, you need to listen. You can't let them know about me. It's not safe. Keep it between us for now.
This is why I think that Edwin wasn't 100% honest with David about M1 at first.
This is M1.
Why does it look like that?
It's an endoskeleton. It won't always look like this. It can fit into any costume we've created. Think of it as your new babysitter.
I do think Edwin also intended for M1 to be something he could eventually sell as an endoskeleton that can be any character, but I think the very first one was always meant to be Fiona. I think this because in the room where M1 was created, we see an image of it inside of a mascot costume, while also getting the audio log showing the mimic program mimicking Fiona. Not only
it always had the ability to expand and contract to fit in any costumes.
One a great business idea, it was also a great way to potentially bring back his wife. But as we know, this doesn't really end up working out for Edwin in the end. And the main reason everything falls apart isn't because Edwin created the mimic endoskeleton to replace his wife, it's because of the paperclip. Let me explain. I think this game was trying to tell us that something went wrong long before M1 or M2 even existed. Remember those messages from Edwin's customers complaining about his inventions acting strange? Well, there's actually a common theme throughout all of them. Quote, my husband is a steel worker and recently he moved to the night shift. He tried your stay-up latte and it worked wonders for about 2 weeks. He is now in the hospital because of your drink. We bought your magic coat rack last May, but lately it seems to change size at random. One morning I came out to find all my coats flung across the room and the coat rack 10 feet tall. We're afraid someone might get hurt. heart. And my child loves your Jest cereal. However, the pranks inside are extremely inappropriate. The hand buzzer paralyzed our dog Fido. The coffee machine worked at first, but then started serving up way too much caffeine, leading the customer to be hospitalized. The coat rack that could change its size worked at first, but then started changing its size a little too much, becoming 10 feet tall. The prank in the Jest cereal box was supposed to be a little shock toy, but the toy eventually gave a little too much shock and paralyzed the dog. And the mycelium men were listening to and repeating words, but then they started listening a little too much to private conversations. Each of these inventions were doing what they were programmed to do, but they were doing them to such an extreme degree that it started to become dangerous.
It's like in the movie Novocaine, how the main character, I think his name was Nathan, he was talking about how he had, like, because he couldn't feel pain, if he ate solid food, he might accidentally bite his tongue off. It's kind of like that. It's like, because your brain, like, has it hardwired that you shouldn't bite your tongue off. You easily could, but it's like a mental block. It's like, if you can't feel pain, you don't have that mental block. So that's kind of like what this would be like. You have nothing telling him at what point you should stop, you know?
Scott and Steelwool showed us these messages for one specific purpose: to point out the one specific flaw in Edwin's mimic program. In 2003, a philosopher named Nick Bostrom came up with a thought experiment surrounding AI and paperclips. He called it the paperclip maximizer, and the idea is that if you give a poorly designed AI the goal of creating as many paperclips as possible, it will do anything to complete the job. Bostrom said, quote, "The AI will realize quickly that it would be much better if there were no humans, because humans might decide to switch it off. Because if humans do so, there would be fewer paperclips. Also, human bodies contain a lot of atoms that could be made into paperclips. The future that the AI would be trying to gear towards would be one in which there were a lot of paperclips, but no humans." Just like Edwin's inventions, this theory revolves around an AI that was given a harmless task, but it does it to such an extreme degree that it starts to become dangerous. This is exactly what we see with Edwin's mimic program. The mimic AI that Edwin created for these inventions was amazing, but it had one extremely consequential flaw. It lacked something called AI alignment. AI alignment is something that makes sure an AI aligns with human values and ethics. With AI alignment, if you give an AI the goal to create as many paperclips as possible, it will accomplish the task without doing any harm. This is because the AI now has the same values and ethics as us. But because Edwin never implemented human ethics and morals into his program, his inventions did what they were programmed to do, but to that extreme degree, which then made them dangerous.
I know what you want better than you do.
And believe it or not, this one mistake by Edwin can be seen decades later in the Glamrock animatronics. We know because of the Tales from the Pizzaplex books that Edwin's mimic AI is infecting the entire Pizzaplex, including the animatronics. Glamrock Chica's whole thing is that she loves food, but because of the mimic AI, she starts loving food a little too much, with her now eating anything she can get her hands on. Roxy's whole thing is her confidence, but now the mimic AI made her way too confident. Monty is the tough guy of the group, but the mimic AI heightened that and made him way too aggressive. Once again, they're doing what they were programmed to do, but to an extreme degree, making them dangerous. This can also be applied to
that's also, I think that's talked about like in the storyteller, right? It's like they aren't doing anything wrong. They're just amplified, like, to an extreme degree after the mimic, like, infects them.
When M1 was given the task to take care of David, it was going to complete that task no matter the cost. But once David passed away, M1 was now unable to accomplish the task it was given. There was no longer a David to take care of. This is why, once David was gone, M1 begged
it was like,
Edwin
make a new David
M2
so that I can continue my task.
Back.
You need to try again. Build another.
Edwin, calm down and give it some thought. Try again. Make another, and we can all be together.
And even after being trapped in the mixes machine, M1 is still doing everything it can to bring David back.
Put that data diver in the inventory system. It'll go right to where it's needed.
M1 needs our data diver, but once we refuse to give it up, its tone immediately changes, and it starts saying anything it can to make us turn around.
What are you doing? Don't you want a bonus? Or 2 bonuses? You can have a day off. You are not going to make it out of here alive. If you had just given me the schematics, we could have fixed things.
Up until the last second before we meet M1 face to face, it is still throwing every insult it can at us.
I see right through your simple shell game.
M1 is desperate and out of options, and without an endoskeleton to occupy, it can't physically make us do anything. So it'll say any insult or threat that it can, until we meet it face to face. When this happens, M1 switches its strategy from threatening to bargaining.
And here you are. Despite the circumstances, it is nice to meet you face to face.
Arnold could theoretically destroy or even unplug the Mix's machine, and M1 wouldn't be able to stop us, so it starts immediately playing to our emotions.
It is lonely down here. Edwin abandoned us. He shut himself away in our home. Tell Edwin I still love him.
This is another prime example of the Mimic AI doing its job to a dangerous degree. M1 doesn't have a David to take care of, so it doesn't care how many Fazbear technicians have to die. It wants David back, and it wants our data diver.
Fazbear will send another. Maybe that one will help me.
Towards the end of the game, you can find Edwin's first ever prototype of the Cleanovac. This prototype is later described as, quote, the vacuum pet, his greatest success and his greatest failure. You could interpret this a lot of ways, but the way I interpret it is that although the Cleanovac was a financial success, the Mimic program that Edwin created for it was what made it his biggest failure.
Yeah,
These inventions were where it all started, and little did he know that the consequences of his greatest failure would be seen for decades to come. The story of the modern FNAF games is an extremely relevant cautionary tale, showcasing the dangers of what could happen if one poorly designed AI program got out of control. I know this probably felt more like a research essay than a groundbreaking theory with big reveals, but discussing the overall theme and where I think everything initially went wrong just felt right for my first video on such a big game. There is still a lot to talk about though, so make sure to subscribe for more theories. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.
Alright. That was a good theory. I enjoyed that. I think it makes a lot of sense. That's kind of all I have to say about that, honestly. I think it makes sense. The idea of, like, the mycelium men, like, overhearing stuff, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think it's a cool connection. Definitely interesting theory. I like it a lot. And, yeah, that's all for that reaction.